located at 715 Central Parkway West in the city of Mississauga. And roll call, all members are present except Mayor Jeffrey and Councillor Medeiros. Are there any declarations of conflict of interest? Seeing none then, this application, if approved, T&T Supermarket shall be exempt from the provisions of the Act to the limited extent that it shall be permitted to sell and or offer for sale any goods or services associated with a retail grocery store between the hours of 9 a.m. and 10 p.m. on New Year's Day, Good Friday, Easter Sunday, Victoria Day, Canada Day, Labor Day, and Thanksgiving Day. Peel Region is the approval authority for applications for exemption under the Retail Business Holidays Act. Regional staff will report back to Regional Council regarding the T&T Supermarket application, including outcomes of this public meeting. A regional bylaw is required for approval and will be presented at a future meeting of Regional Council. I would like to remind Council of the provincial mandate that retail business holidays should be maintained as common pause days for consumers and employees. Exemptions may be granted where the provincial tourism criteria found in Ontario Regulation 711/91 have been met. I note that even where the tourism criteria are met, Council is not required to pass an exemption bylaw. If an exemption bylaw is granted, any person who objects to the bylaw may appeal Council's decision to the Ontario Municipal Board no later than 30 days after the day the bylaw is passed by Council. In accordance with Section 4 of the Retail Business Holiday Act, a bylaw that is passed under this section and is not appealed will come into force on the 31st day after it is passed by Council. The format for this morning's meeting will include a short presentation and introductory remarks by regional staff and will be followed by representations by the public. Momentarily, I will call on the T&T Supermarket applicants to explain how the application meets the provincial tourism criteria. Following the presentations, there will be an opportunity for the public to make written and or verbal submissions on the matter or ask questions of the applicants or regional staff. There is a sign-in sheet located at the clerk's reception counter for anyone who wishes to make comments. There is a separate sheet for anyone who wishes to be notified of Council's decision on this application. If you are speaking on behalf of a special interest group, I ask that you please identify the group prior to speaking. I will ask the regional clerk to advise of the method by which notice of the meeting was given and confirm the dates that the notices were given.
Notice of this public meeting to consider an application for exemption by T&T Supermarket was given in accordance with Region of Peel Bylaw 18-1999, Sections 11.2C to 11.2F, by first-class mail to every person and agency that has given the regional clerk a written request of such notice of the proposed bylaw, to the clerk of each area municipality within the Region of Peel, to the policing authority having jurisdiction in the area, and to the applicant on February 12, 2015. The applicant from the T&T Supermarket was instructed to post the notice of public meeting in the retail establishment seeking exemption no later than March 6, 2015, and for it to remain there until the end of the business day today. Further, notice of this public meeting was given in accordance with Section 4 of the Act and Region of Peel Bylaw 18-1999 by publication in the following news media having general circulation in the Region of Peel. Mississauga News, February 12, 2015. In addition, the notice of public meeting was posted on the Region's website as of February 12, 2015. Any person who would like further notice of the future passage of the T&T Supermarket's application for exemption to the Act should give their full name, address, postal code, and telephone number in writing at the clerk's reception counter prior to leaving this meeting.
Thank you. We will now consider the application by T&T Supermarket. Regional staff will provide an overview of the subject application. I request all persons wishing to address the application or to ask questions to address them through the chair. So if you'd like to come forward at this time. That's great. Yes, John.
Good morning to the Chair and members of Regional Council. My name is John Hardcastle, and I'm a manager with the Development Services Division of the Public Works Department. I'm here this morning to provide a staff presentation on the Retail Business Holiday Act exemption request by T&T Supermarkets for their store at 715 Central Parkway West. My presentation will focus on the procedural and process elements of the proposal, whereas the applicant and their consultants will focus on the details and rationale of the request itself. T&T Supermarket has filed an application with the Region Appeal for a retail business exemption to the Retail Business Holiday Act for their existing T&T Supermarket located at 715 Central Parkway West. The proponent is seeking to stay open voluntarily from 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. on New Year's Day, Good Friday, Easter Sunday, Victoria Day, Canada Day, Labor Day, and Thanksgiving Day. The lands subject to this request are municipally known as 715 Central Parkway West. The lands are located at the northwest corner of Central Parkway West and Grand Park Drive, which is generally to the south of Burnham Thorpe Road and to the east of Mavis Road, in close proximity to Mississauga City Hall and Square One's shopping center. In accordance with Section 6B of the Retail Business Holidays Act and Region Appeal Bylaw 18-1999, public notification was given in accordance with the following ways. The notice was posted to the Region Appeal website and appeared in Mississauga News as of February 12, 2015. In addition, the owner posted the approved notice on site as of March 6, 2015. Section 4 of the Retail Business Holidays Act provides Regional Council with the authority to permit individual business establishments to remain open on holidays for the maintenance or development of tourism. An adopted regional bylaw is required for approval. Any person who objects to the bylaw may appeal the Council's decision to the OMB within 30 days. A bylaw that is not appealed will come into force on the 31st day after the passage by Council. Regional Council is not required to pass a bylaw even if the tourism criteria are met. In making its decision, a municipal council is to take into account the principle that holidays should be maintained as a common pause day, and a bylaw may only be passed if there is compliance with the provincial tourism criteria found in Ontario Regulation 711-91. An individual retail business establishment exemption is being requested, and the applicable evaluative criteria are that the business is located within 2 kilometers of a tourist attraction, the business is directly associated with or relies on tourists visiting the attraction for business on a holiday. For the purposes of the Retail Business Holiday Act, tourist attractions are identified as natural attractions or outdoor recreational attractions, historical attractions, and cultural, multicultural, or educational attractions. Following this meeting, staff will prepare a report and bylaw for Council consideration at a future meeting. That concludes my presentation.
Thanks, John. To date, we have received one oral submission for the application for exemption under the Act. I will now call on the representatives of T&T Supermarket to explain how the application meets the provincial tourism criteria. I believe Tina Lee is here, along with Alex Arif Uzman. Thank you.
Good morning, Regional Chair Frank Dale, councillors. My name is Tina Lee, CEO of T&T Supermarkets. I cannot presume that everybody here might know or have been in a T&T supermarket, but it is a business that was started by my mother 22 years ago, and we strive to bring Asian Canadians the foods that they love in a comfortable and fresh shopping environment up to Canadian standards. At the 22 years ago, that wasn't really like that. And then also, of course, we try to share what we do in bringing the best of Asian cuisine to Canadians as well. So that's a bit about our business. We have 23 stores across the country, 9 in Ontario, 1 in Mississauga, and 5,000 staff. In 2009, we were acquired by Loblaw Company, which I'm sure you are aware, but is headquartered here in Peel Region. But we operate very independently from them since our business is actually quite different. So as much as I'd like you to shop at T&T, and we can talk about coconut bread and bok choy all day long, what I'd like to do today is to have everybody please approve a exemption for the Retail Business Holiday Act due to our proximity to a retail location, and that would be Square One. So in 2003, a similar application was done by Garden Foods. They were successfully exempted, and we hope to have the same treatment here today. So a very obvious question is, do we have the support from our customers and our employees? And so for our customers, we did do a fairly large customer survey. Close to 450 customers were surveyed. And of them, 87% of them said that they would like us to open on retail holidays. We happened to actually also ask a question, how many during those retail holidays, how many do visit Square One? And 79% of them said they also visit Square One. In an employee survey that we did, about 90% of our full-time staff also voted to have us open on retail holiday acts, because for them, it's actually an opportunity for them to earn 1.5 times their normal wages. And in retail, their schedules are very flexible. So what we've done also is if you work on that day, we offer free meals for the shift that you're on. And then also they can choose to take a Saturday or Sunday off the following week. So we very much respect the ESA regulations. Nobody would be forced to work on that holiday. They certainly have the choice, and then they appreciate to be able to have a time on the following weekend. Okay. Some other thoughts. There are several days that are holidays, and while we are applying for this application, we are going to remain closed for 2 dates. One being Christmas, and the other being Family Day. Now, I think Family Day is an interesting one, particularly because I feel like the province has almost strategically set the date to be somewhere in and around Chinese New Year. And I think that is actually quite respectable and reflective of the way our country is changing, because that day is actually when it's the most important holiday for our community, and it happens to be at Family Day. So we treasure that holiday actually much more than any of the other ones on the list. So lastly, I just ask for everybody's support on this application. There has been a precedent set prior, so we hope to have that fair statement. And I know perhaps there's some people in the public here too that might not think a grocery store has anything to do with being a tourist, anything to do with tourism. But I believe that T&T is quite unique in our offering, simply because of the experiences that we have. We have a store in Ottawa now, but prior to the store that we opened in Ottawa, every Saturday we would have 2 tour buses filled with 50 people each, and they would have coolers underneath. They would put coolers underneath the bus and drive to Toronto, shop at T&T, go see the CN Tower, and go back to Ottawa. I mean, no joke, every Saturday, 2 tour buses. Now that we have opened a site in Ottawa, we have tour buses every Saturday from Montreal driving to our store in Ottawa. And it's really because we are a business of importing unique brands from Asian countries, and it really lets new Canadians feel at home. Okay. So I'd like to introduce Alex, who's our professional consultant on this topic, to walk you through more of the details. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you. So we have prepared a complete application and justification report, and what I will show here is a summary of that, some of the key highlights of the report with respect to TNT opening on holidays in Mississauga. As Tina said, there's only certain days that have been requested to be open. And there is the tie between TNT and the Loblaw companies, which has strong ties to Peel Region. You've seen the site. So with respect to the Retail Business and Holidays Act, this is a unique circumstance. In some ways, it's similar to what happened with Garden Foods a few years ago in the town of Caledon. In some ways, it's different. Garden Foods received the exemption on its own. This application is tied to the fact that it is located within 2 kilometers of Square One Shopping Center, and Square One has been designated as a tourist location and has received the tourist designation because it's a tourist attraction in and of itself, and the tourist attractions it's nearby to. So in terms of setting a precedent, this really only speaks to areas, a zone within 2 kilometers of Square One Shopping Center. And in terms of tourist attraction, being within 2 kilometers of Square One, there's been a lot of surveys that we've undertaken to look at the interaction between Square One and TNT, and over 70% of the people that shop at TNT have crossover with Square One. So it's almost a similar, unique destination. So basically, TNT will promote sales on holidays through sales of unique food products, as can be seen in the flyer. I would also like to point out that in terms of a full-service Asian grocery, TNT is the westernmost such location in southern Ontario. So it has a large amount of traffic that drives from all of southwestern Ontario and south central Ontario to this location in Mississauga. And the fact that it is located near Square One promotes the tourism from that perspective. And we've done surveys to see the percentage of customers that come from a wider area, and it's we have details within our study, but it is a significant number that does come from a very wide area. So that also supports and promotes tourism into Peel Region. These customers, if they do not have an option in Peel Region, they will go to other options in York Region or in Toronto. And there's also potential customers within Peel Region who are right now being forced to do their shopping at similar locations that are open in York Region or Toronto. So this would also keep internal tourism within Peel Region. We have a sample flyer here, which will be tailored to each of the holidays. So here we have some details in terms of the percentage of customers that come from various distance bands, and over 11% come from more than 20 kilometers, and I expect that would be even higher on a holiday, because on a holiday there's opportunity to have more time for customers and travel further for those customers that wish to do so. And there's the internal tourism, which are the people within Peel Region who currently are forced to travel outside of Peel Region to do shopping of this nature. And external tourism, like I said, there is a draw. We've have some examples of what's happened with respect to Ottawa, but the same dynamics are at place in Peel Region. And we have some maps of where the customers are coming from. Again, this is the survey that was alluded to earlier in terms of the customers wishing to shop on holidays, and they have that option right now outside of Peel. This would provide them an option within Peel. So it is located within 2 kilometers of a major tourist attraction, Square One, and all of the surrounding tourist facilities as well, which can all interact with the customers who come in from a far distance to shop at TNT, and they can cross over into some of the other attractions. We have a map of some of the tourist attractions within 2 kilometers. It's really only the areas within this 2 kilometer zone that can tie into the Square One tourist designation. So this is a summary of what I have mentioned in terms of the impacts, and that's about it. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much. I see no questions. Yeah, thanks for your presentation.
Thank you.
Is there any other person present who wishes to make an oral submission with respect to the subject application? Seeing none. At the time the public meeting agenda was distributed to council, we have received no written submission with respect to the subject application. I request all persons wishing to make a written submission to present a copy of their letter to Regional Clerk before leaving this meeting. Are there any additional written submissions to be presented at this time? All right. Well, then, on behalf of council, I thank all of our speakers for their interest and representations during the meeting. This concludes the public meeting for the purpose of receiving public presentations and written submissions regarding the application for exemption for the T&T Supermarket in the City of Mississauga. The regional bylaw will be presented to a future regional council meeting for determination with respect to the subject application. Just before we close, I'll ask Councillor Yanika.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to make sure you had no other speakers. I'm privileged to be the councilman for the area, and I'm happy to move this back to staff to come back with a report, and I'll be quite candid and hope the report finds favor. I think you had an excellent presentation. The only points that I would add is they've been remiss in not noting that apart from their site in and of itself relative to Square One, this is part of a hub or a node that Councillor Starr and the Mayor would know quite well, that as we go a little bit further west, all of the Oriental properties that are there and more emerging along Central Parkway, some marvelous hubs that we have. And it's in fact true, there's no question, on holidays they may congregate around Square One, but food is so much a part of this culture as it is of mine, and you can also sit down and have a meal here. I also had the privilege of zoning it many, many years ago, welcoming them into our community. I also zoned the Mississauga Chinese Center many years ago and was around when we gave it a tourism designation. So for a whole host of reasons, and many more that I can give, not the least of which they've been excellent corporate citizens, I support their requests and look forward to the report coming back, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Sprovieri.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And just a question. I'm not trying to be humorous or anything, but I'm always curious about trying new foods, and I'm always looking for healthy breads. Next time you come, perhaps you can bring a little sample of the coconut bread for all of us, because I don't want to drive all the way down to
I would
Mississauga.
have just been delighted to do that. Oh, my, have you tried the egg tarts? Have you tried the egg tarts? My goodness. And the coconut bread. I mean, I'll tell you, the coconut bread, which we Fresh Bake in Store, we've just launched into Loblaw stores, in some select Loblaw stores that can actually bake in store. It has just become a runaway hit, and that's what I meant about our mission. We really do make an impact on introducing all the best of Asian cuisine to mainstream Canadians and other Canadians. And I mean, this country is built on a country of immigrants, and all of our palates are maturing to be like that. And T&T plays a large role in that evolution. And also, if I may make another comment, and next time, I hope to open one more store in Mississauga, actually.
How about Brampton?
West.
I know that would have been
Brampton, there's not quite yet
Not yet,
enough.
not there yet.
Yeah, that's discussion for another day.
I would stop while you're ahead.
But Mississauga West, West Mississauga, I'm trying to do something there in West Mississauga, because honestly, we have all of the student population, the Queens, Waterloo, London, Ontario, at Western. On the weekends, we really get jammed with cars of students from those cities, that because there's such limited offering in those cities, they have to drive to our most west store, which is Central Parkway. So now I want to do a store close to Erin Mills, close to Winston Churchill, even west of the store, so that drive is a little bit easier. And plus, as you know, parking at our Central Parkway store is just a real jam. It's really difficult. And on retail holidays, where we do have a few stores in the city of Markham where we are opened on holidays, on the weekends, unfortunately, the long weekends, that's where the student population and the families go, because the holidays are for celebrating, and they need the fresh fish, the coconut bread, the soy sauces, all of that to help celebrate. And we just happen to be a unique offering that way, and so I think it makes a lot of sense to be exempted on the holiday.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right.
If you allow me, next time I will bring
I
egg
look
tarts
forward
for
to it.
sure.
Mayor
For all of
Crombie.
us. I think we all are curious.
Mayor Crombie.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to support my counselor. I also want to say that we're missing the bigger picture here, because yes, the act requires you to be exempted if you're within proximity of a tourist site, but we also have to have respect for all the diverse communities that are located in Mississauga and Brampton as well, who may be celebrating different holidays, quite frankly. And, I think it's time that we take stock of that idea as well, that, that yes, you are required to be closed for Christmas and Easter, but you have your own holidays as well that you celebrate, and you may not be in sync with the same calendar, frankly, as celebrating Judeo-Christian holidays. So I think it's time that Mississauga and Brampton take that into account as well. So I support my counselor, and I hope that staff
Mayor
report comes
Crombie,
back in your favor.
I'm so happy you brought that up because it is so.
We're a very diverse community. 56% of our
So
people
true.
are born somewhere else, and I think that deserves to be respected.
Absolutely, that is absolutely so true. When I overlay our sales trends next to a typical Loblaw stores, the peaks and the troughs are completely different. We peak at Chinese New Year, we peak at Dragon Boat Festival, we peak at Mid-Autumn Festival, and nothing at Thanksgiving, right? And so, and the South Asian demographic, the first or second, I mean, between Chinese and Indian populations, those are your top two. The South Asians have their own festivities that peak at different times as well as from Chinese. So I think that is a wonderful point, and I should have brought that up, actually.
I did for you. There you go.
Thank you.
Councillor Parrish.
Yeah, I'm just curious, when the staff brings back the report, there's another huge Chinese market on Burnhamthorpe. And I would assume they'll be here next, wanting the same sort of privilege. And Ocean's up on Highway 10. So could we get sort of a little plot as to where all these grocery stores are and prepare ourselves for the onslaught in this report?
Sure.
Thank you.
I didn't know you were doing.
Sure
We'll take-
was
we'll-
good.
We'll take it as direction.
Thank you.
All right. Councillor Shaughnessy.
Thank you. I was just wondering, the ladies said, I'm sorry, I'm awful on names, said that Family Day was their most important day because it coincides with their requirements. And I'm looking at the list, and I'm seeing Good Friday and Easter Sunday, which to the majority of, or great majority of Canadians, is their most important day. So I'm just wondering, from this list, could we cherry pick it, and could we say we agree with certain days and we don't agree with other days?
It's at the prerogative of council. Yes. That actually occurred when Bramalea City Centre came forward and we excluded Family Day from, whereas I believe Square One and others are open on Family Day. So it's at the prerogative of council for sure. Councillor Starr.
Yeah, just in response to Councillor Parrish's query, there is already an application for Yonming Market, and they're already in there. They're in the mill, and they're doing all the due diligence.
All right. Thank you. Councillor Paleshi.
If I can sum up a little bit about what Councillor Parrish and now Councillor Starr said, if we can ask, provide direction to staff, ask them to bring back how many companies in the past have come to the region asking for this, how many companies are in the quarry, and I guess that's the two things that I'd like to ask staff to bring back to council when they bring back a report. Thanks.
All right, we'll take that as direction as well. Thank you. Any others? Councillor Sato.
Thank you. When will the final report be coming back, Chair Dale?
Through you, Mr. Chair, if I could, depending on the types of, we could get written submissions after this council. So once we've absorbed any of the feedback, we prepare the report and try to get it into the legislative process within the next month, and it's about a month after that before it kicks in. So I'm looking at the clerk, probably May
Coming back in May, okay.
Like
I
at
was
the
just
end of
wondering-
May?
End of May.
End of
End of May? Okay. I'm going to be taking this to the Mississauga Tourism Board. We have, I'm chairing a meeting in 2 weeks of the board, and actually 1 week away. And I think because the arguments that are coming forward are strongly based on the tourism aspect, I would like to get the opinion of the people who serve on that board as we're moving forward. So I will certainly provide that to members of council after our meeting on March 30th.
Thank you. That exhausts the list. In council that the regional bylaw will be presented to a future regional council meeting for determination with respect to the subject application. I hereby declare this public meeting officially closed. I'll call to order the council meeting for the Regional Municipality Appeal for March 26, 2015. And roll call. All members are present. That was easy. And before we say the prayer, I would just like to acknowledge the presence of our councillor in the end there, Councillor McFadden. Welcome back. It's nice to see your smiling face and your presence in the council chambers. I would now ask Councillor Mahoney to recite the prayer.
Grant us, O God, perception and patience, that justice, truth, and honesty may be evident on our planning and governing. Make us aware of the needs of each part of this regional municipality. Save us from a parochialism that divides and so creates in us a desire for progress and responsible action. We pray that all our words and deeds may be in accord with thy will, to the glory of thy holy name. Amen.
Are there any declarations of conflict of interest? Councillor Paleshi, I think you may, on the minutes of, I think you were going to, I think we were speaking earlier, you were going to declare a conflict with respect to the minutes of the February 26th meeting where council approved the members of the Peel Housing Corporation?
That's correct.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks. Approval of the minutes. Okay. Who's, I'm trying to think. Wait, there's nobody here. What's her name? I didn't see it, but so nobody signed it. Okay, Councillor Groves, sorry. Yeah, Councillor Groves, you move the minutes. Councillor Yanika, second it. All those in favor? Carried. Approval of the agenda. Mayor Thompson, Councillor Fonseca, all in favor? Oh, I apologize. Councillor Sato.
Thank you. I'd like to add an item to the agenda, please. If we could, under Public Works, if we could add in a discussion again on the garbage carts, garbage recycling carts.
Okay. Will do. And no, I still have Councillor Carlson.
Thanks very much, Mr. Chair. With your indulgence, I'd like to ask a question now of staff, because I have the pleasant duty of having to leave early today to award a medal to someone, so I won't be here later on. And it's to do with the noise wall program with Mr. Lebrecht, and it'll take about a minute.
I'll hold you to the minute, but we'll extend that privilege to you, Councillor.
I'll do my best auctioneer voice. Thank you very much for the report from 2011 on the noise walls. We have quite a few new members of council. I'm just asking for an update on the noise attenuation, both the bylaw, the program of how you sign up for it in terms of like the local improvement options, and the different costs that would be associated with that. You've got all the 2011 stats, which have Brampton at 75-25, the region at 50-50, and the city of Mississauga at 100-0. If we could just get an update on, I think, if I'm reading this correctly, the last time we looked at it was about $5 million gross cost to include all of the noise attenuation walls on private property. I guess at the 50-50, that's a $2.5 million, but that number is a little bit out of date. And I'd like to look at that because further on I may wish to move a motion, but with so many new members of council, we better get some updated information if I could. Is that under a minute, Frank?
Pretty close.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Chairman, could I just be clear? you want a full review, because that report took us a number of months to do the inventory, because we're really talking about private noise walls, so it wasn't in our inventory. You just want us to do kind of a rough justice, just to bring it back. We can do that quicker,
yes.
Otherwise it would be later in the year.
No, just a quick update, and I can talk to you after.
Okay, and just to be clear, the magnitude of the number was 50 million over probably 10 or so years, but that was the magnitude that we were dealing with back in 2011. The full cost of bringing all those private noise walls into the public domain over a number of years. Might be 5 million a year, but it'd be infinitum.
Okay, well, I could talk to you about it. I'm reading 5.4 million over 10 years here. Maybe I'm not reading it correctly, but we can, whatever it is,
We'll
we need an
update.
update. Okay, thanks
no
very
problem.
much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
So all in favor of the approval of the agenda as amended then? Carried. Thank you. Moves us right into delegations. Dr. Sheldon Cheskus. As you know, we normally have a 5-minute limit. And I don't believe in all the years I've been on council that we've held you to that, so
Thank you so much.
I'll give you a little bit of leeway, but I would also ask that you be respectful of our time, because we have a
no
pretty
problem.
busy agenda. But
Yes,
welcome.
I definitely didn't bring any bok choy or coconut bread, but hopefully I'll give you another food for thought today, so.
Oh,
This,
good one.
you like that, eh?
Good
You
one.
like that? That's an experienced person speaking up there, so. First of all, thanks so much for everyone having me up here today. It's actually almost like a bit of a time warp. With all due respect, Chair, I see Emil up there. I see Hazel here. I see. Well, but now you look much.
You were supposed to say in his younger days.
Yeah. So it's really great to be here. As you know, I really enjoy giving my update to Regional Council on things that we've been able to accomplish in the pre-hospital field, and none of this can actually be done without the help of Council. So hopefully you'll enjoy some of the stuff I bring us today. My disclosure slide is as follows. I thought it'd be helpful, since we have so many new people here, to get an understanding of where I come from and the role that I play in the region. I've been the medical director at Sunnybrook Center for Pre-Hospital Medicine for about 25 years. I provide medical oversight to both Peel and Halton Paramedic Services, as well as the Region of Peel Variety of Fire Services. I was formerly Divisional Chief of Emergency Medicine at Peel Memorial for almost 20 years. I have assistant professor position at University of Toronto and a scientist at St. Michael's Hospital in their research center. When I talk about patient care, I want to sort of give people an understanding of how we've been able to advance improvements in patient care through the research we've done in the region. I want to give you some intake in a fantastic stroke trial that is just launched in Peel Region just Tuesday, and give you an idea in terms of some things we're thinking about in terms of improving patient care and diverting some patients from the hospital or away from the hospital to other centers. So in terms of research and things we've been able to accomplish in research is, as you know, we've been one of the largest sites in the Resuscitation Outcomes Consortium, the largest out-of-hospital research group in North America, 10 sites in North America, only 3 in Canada, Toronto, Ottawa, and Vancouver. Peel Regional Paramedic Services and the Fire Services have taken part in the consortium since 2006. The EMS agencies involved take part in large randomized trials, which are the gold standard for research in both cardiac arrest and major life-threatening trauma. And I really think that around the world, we've become recognized as leaders, and I think it's probably because of the work that we've been able to do in the consortium. There's the sites, and this is really, when you look at the sites up there, that's really the creme de la creme of EMS agencies in North America. We've done a large number of studies as part of the trial. We're currently actually doing 3 studies, one looking at varying the way we do CPR in cardiac arrest, one looking at drug use in cardiac arrest, and the other looking at cooling patients in cardiac arrest to preserve brain function. All these trials will be finished at the end of this year, and it really will add to our legacy of what we've been able to accomplish in the region. Do I think research impacted our outcomes? I can tell you right now, if you look at our data from 2007 to 2014, we've almost had a 92% increase and the number of people who survive cardiac arrest in Peel Region. That number of 71, it almost seems like every year 10 more people survive to go home with their loved ones who sustain cardiac arrest. When we look at survival from patients who are able to be shocked with a defibrillator, as well as all witnessed rhythms, those numbers there in 2014 of 31.2 and 16.4%, those are amongst the highest in the world, and we are in fact recognized as leaders in these particular areas. When we look at survival from cardiac arrest at our regional partners, you'll see Peel leads the way with respect to survival in all these particular domains. And why do we get so many survivors? What are we doing a little bit differently? I think one thing that we do well here is a lot of the patients, because of our response time being so good, present in rhythms that can be shocked. We have an excellent use of public access defibrillators. So if someone uses a public access defibrillator, you'll see in Peel almost 55% survival, 1 out of every 2, if you actually put on a defibrillator that's in a public access site. And that's something that we want to almost improve even further. You'll see there our bystander CPR rate of 35%. I'm going to talk about that a little bit as we move on here. So clearly, research has improved significantly our outcomes from cardiac arrest. The quality of CPR by both our paramedics and our fire services are second to none. We've been able to add a lot of post-arrest care, so at Trillium and William Osler, we've been able to add a number of interventions that improve outcome. And really, I'm just the face of the research. Really, it's the paramedics who do the research. Without their work, we would not be able to save the number of people that we actually save. Chief Dundas, Council have been great in supporting our efforts moving forward. So for me, can we do better? I always feel we can do better. I always like to save more people if we can. I think we can focus on improved rates of bystander CPR. Peel Region really works hard at a school level to get school level kids really increasing their notoriety with respect to CPR. Really what we found, it's really hard to get a bystander rate over 40%, and we've almost plateaued at 35%. The Arizona group's done some great work looking at dispatcher-assisted CPR. And when you add dispatcher-assisted CPR, so you call 911 and the dispatcher gives you instructions in performing CPR, that can really improve bystander CPR, and that in turn improves survival. Arizona's got it up over 50%. That's where I'd like us to be as we move forward. Public access defibrillation has a huge potential for improvement, but you have to understand 85% of patients who sustain cardiac arrest have it at home. It's not in the public. So for those who have it in the public, this is a huge opportunity. You saw our survival rate there, over 50%, so it can really be something special. We're looking at the region to developing a focus pad program, so I really tell you that better results are probably still ahead. The next little area is the area of STEMI. So if you have a heart attack outside the hospital, how do you do? I can tell you, if I'm going to have a heart attack, let me have it in Peel Region. And I think the reason for that is we have 2 phenomenal cath labs at both at Trillium and Brampton Civic. We have a process where paramedics identify patients who have a heart attack outside the hospital, and they take them directly to the cath lab. They bypass all the hospitals, they bypass the emerge, they go directly to the cath lab. Our results show us right now that we have the best times in the province from paramedic contact to treatment and very low false positive rates. So what that means is if a paramedic sees a heart attack in the field, they have one. Okay, so that's really good because it's a lot of work to activate the PCI labs, both at Trillium and Brampton Civic. Last year, we did over 300 of these cases between Brampton Civic and Trillium. That mean EMS contact to PCI time, the best actually in the province, and very low rates of false positive, which is really, really special. When you look at the provincial times, it's a bit of a difficult slide. If you look at the blue boxes, those are really Trillium and Osler, and as you can see, they're right at the top with respect to this 90-minute benchmark. So cardiac arrest, STEMI, really doing some phenomenal work. I think we can improve this. I think we can extend the use of PCI to other patients who are having myocardial infarction. looking at regional centers of excellence that can do it all. And there's a lot of new things in resuscitation. There's some thought of sending the patient directly to these regional centers to optimize care, not unlike sending patients to trauma centers. This is also a concept thought of in cardiac care. My next talk is probably the most exciting thing I've done in the 20 or so years we've done pre-hospital care, and that's the Frontier trial. Frontier trial is a revolutionary trial looking at using a drug that was developed by Dr. Mike Tymiansky at University of Toronto that will hopefully be able to use by all patients who sustain stroke. Currently, when you have a stroke in the field, the only treatment that's really available to you is the use of TPA, which is a clot-busting drug. But to actually use that drug, what has to happen is you have to identify the patient, they have to get to the hospital, they need to have a CT, so they didn't have a hemorrhage, and then they have to get the drug. And all that has to happen within 3 hours. So because of that, the use of TPA is very limited. Only 5% of our patients actually get TPA. But no drug currently is available that could benefit all patients with ischemia or a hemorrhage into the brain. This is the first trial looking at such a drug given by paramedics in the field, and it's a true opportunity to change practice in stroke, which is long overdue. The trial is called Field Randomization of NA1 and Early Responders. Stroke is time is brain. When you have a stroke, 2 million neurons are lost every minute. By 4 hours, the damage is complete with respect to stroke. We've used neurotransmitters before. We've used these drugs before in over 1,000 trials. None of the trials ever showed a benefit. But when you look at those trials, the drug was given to the patient 7 hours after the onset of stroke. So you're giving a drug to a brain that already has damage that's irreversible. The trial we're doing will give the drug to the person as early as possible in their stroke symptom. So we want to give it within 3 hours. I'm not going to show this slide for brevity. The primary objective is to see if the NA1, which is a drug we've developed here in Toronto, will reduce global disability in stroke. The drug is given as an IV infusion by the paramedic in the field. The paramedic's treatment in the field is exactly as it is right now, except for the 10-minute infusion of the drug. The beauty of the drug is that if they get to the hospital and they still qualify for TPA, the use of TPA in these drugs is in fact additive. They actually do even better than one drug alone. So it's actually an incredible opportunity to make a difference. Only 3 services in the world are taking part in this landmark trial. These are the receiving stroke centers. So you'll see our friends at Trillium have really invested in this particular trial. There is no study I've ever done that actually has had so much media coverage on it than this particular trial. You'll see here in the Globe and Mail in May, and here the talk about small pharma. All the pharmacies have stayed away. The big drug companies have stayed away because they've lost so much money on these particular trials. But no one's ever done a trial like this where the paramedics are going to give the drug. On Tuesday, there was a front-page article on the Globe where I was interviewed about this particular trial, and hopefully people have a chance to read it. It was a really heartwarming piece. So stroke, we talk about STEMI, we talk about cardiac arrest. Stroke, to me, is a new frontier. So many more patients suffer from stroke than all the work we've done in the cardiac side. This, I think, has the opportunity to really help a large number of people. For me, the honor of our service, being able to take part in this, is something really special. I'm just going to close with a little talk on alternate pathways for EMS patient care. We know that the government focuses on the area of community paramedicine, getting patients away from the emergency department when they have low-risk ailments that, in fact, may not require the use of emergency services. We're looking at a project in combination with the Ministry of Health, Sunnybrook, Peel and Halton Region, and the Ontario Telemedicine Network. And this alternate pathway is very interesting. What we want to do is develop a process where 911 is called and we send an EMS responder. We identify the patient as low acuity, and therefore we begin what's called an alternate pathway where a newly trained paramedic would assess the patient in conjunction with the use of telemedicine to meet and actually communicate with an emergency physician in the field. They would actually make a plan of assessment or treatment of the patient and follow up in the process diverting the patient with this low acuity problem from actually going to the emergency department. The technology is actually incredible. We would be able to do point-of-care lab testing so they could get blood work done and urine testing done. The adding of new skills is also possible with this new technique. The beauty is you have oversight with a physician through telehealth, and you're able to divert an ER visit with these particular patients. So here's some examples. You'll see on the left is an otoscope, so the paramedic would introduce the otoscope into the ear. The physician on the side would actually be able to see exactly what the paramedic was seeing in the same spot. We're looking at the back of the eye by the paramedic. The physician would see exactly what the paramedic would see. Similarly, blood and urine testing on scene. So there's a lot of opportunity there to do something completely novel in the area of these low acuity patients. So in conclusion, to me, I just came back. I was speaking at UPenn yesterday in Philadelphia, the oldest medical school in the United States, 275 years. They wanted to know what we're doing in resuscitation and PL. That, to me, is what we've actually done. So when I talk about recognized leader, we are a recognized leader. But we couldn't do that without a lot of the research we do, the paramedics. Our work in cardiac arrest and STEMI are amongst the world's best. Our research in stroke care may actually revolutionize stroke care around the world, and we could not do this without council, who gives us a blessing to do the work we do, without the paramedics, and of course, without Chief Dundas. So hopefully that was a little bit different than the oatmeal bread and bok choy, but hopefully you enjoy that.
Okay.
There you go. Thank you.
I do have, if you'd stay in place, I do have a list.
Yeah. Just going to get a glass of water.
Councillor Groves.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Dr. Cheskis, for your presentation, as always. Very informative. Before I go to some of the questions that I have, I would like to say thank you to Peter Dundas and all of our paramedics. We are very fortunate to have such great people in our community. I recall a few years ago, someone in my community in Bolton was having a heart attack, young man, wife just had a baby, and the paramedics were there in record time, saved him, and it was great. And we did recognize those paramedics. So we should be very reassured knowing that our wait times, or our time between the call and when they get to us, we're at the top. We're in the top anyway.
Yeah.
So thank you. I do have a couple of questions. With regards to the bystander rate, I think part of the problem why you're not getting that 40% or more, it's that big L word. Everybody is afraid of liability.
Yeah.
And they're afraid to touch anybody because, it's that good Samaritan and you want to do good, but you're just afraid of liability. Is that part of the problem that you see?
So I'll give you an interesting story. My daughter's in medical school, and she did her thesis with us on perceptions of Canadians that perform CPR. You think in Canada, everyone would do CPR. Now, we're a nice country, we like people, yet our CPR rates are actually relatively low in comparison to CPR rates around the world. So why is that? I think it goes to a little bit of liability. I think it goes a little bit to fear of acting and acting inappropriately. I think we've dispelled much of that now because of bystander CPR being compression-only CPR, so there's not that fear of doing the breathing part. I think a lot of people fear getting infectious disease through breathing, but now that we've simplified the process, simplified the education, I think some of those fears will change. There is certainly no legal issue that people need to be worried about. But again, it's hard to change that myth over time. But it is interesting, though. It is different from what we see in different countries.
Okay, thank you. Congratulations on the alternate pathway. I think that's great.
Thank you. Looks neat.
Yeah, it really is. I know I own a medical clinic,
Okay.
and one of the doctors that works in the clinic, he also does the telehealth medicine.
Yeah.
It's really good. It is absolutely amazing. I mean, the fact that people can actually talk to the doctor, and the doctor can diagnose and do all the things that they do through this technology stuff. I mean, I'm not very good at technology. I'm the old-fashioned way where I like to go and talk to the doctor face-to-face,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Check me out, listen to my heart, and do all that stuff. But it does work, and he's able to serve a lot of patients, and
You wouldn't be able to see usually, that's the thing. Like, I think that they wouldn't be able to get to.
absolutely. And
So we have telehealth in many of the stroke centers.
Mhm.
So you have patients who in other parts of Ontario that don't have access to stroke care. And their data is reviewed by a stroke physician via telehealth. So otherwise, those patients wouldn't get the care
yeah,
that they're
I know.
getting now.
Between his shifts and then what he does after his shifts on telehealth, it's amazing how many people he can see and
Yeah.
get through the day. With regards to cardiac arrest, and you talked about some of the things that sort of contribute to cardiac arrest, I didn't see, and this is only, and this is my opinion, and you can tell me whether I'm right or wrong, but diet and nutrition, I think, I would think, would play a huge role in heart disease and leading to cardiac arrest and that. Because diabetes becomes it's a huge problem in our society. And I think it's just because of the fast-paced life that we live and we're not eating properly. And so it leads to diabetes, which leads to heart disease, which will lead to cardiac arrest. Is that
I think you hit it right on the head. So you're talking more along the lines of what we call primary prevention. So primary prevention is what can we do to actually decrease the risk of illnesses that can actually produce heart disease and then cardiac arrest. So yeah, diet I think is a very important component. We actually, and I think one of the issues we have in Peel region is there is a very large Asian community, and the Asians have premature rates of atherosclerosis, and we tend to see younger patients with heart disease in that subset. So cardiac arrest, it's multifaceted, but certainly diet would be an important issue with respect to prevention of heart disease in general.
Okay, thank you. And finally, with regards to the new drug that's out there, and I think it's great that someone's come up with this drug to prevent strokes. I just have a couple of questions on it because it's very new. And so you've obviously they've conducted quite a bit of studies. And what type of studies have they conducted?
I've minimized actually the talk on that component. So this drug has been through 20 years of study at U of T. This drug has been through every potential study to show an improvement and also the safety of its use in every phase. And the last trial that was done was used in patients to assess the safety and the decrease in amount of stroke in patients who underwent procedures to clip brain aneurysms, which tend to cause little small strokes. We gave these patients this drug, half didn't get it. The number of strokes were markedly decreased. This is ready for prime time.
Well, when you've got Sunnybrook and some of those other partners on side using that drug, I think that says a lot. The paramedics, I guess they would have special training in administering the drug?
So the paramedics, and this is, I think, the unrecognized part of the research. We trained all our paramedics in the area of stroke assessment, which they already knew. But it's specific to this drug, and specific to the drug, all the ambulances had to be fitted with refrigerators for the drug because the drug had to be frozen or has to be cooled. They had to learn how to use special infusion pumps that would allow the drug to be given over a period of time. So the education is just a small piece. I think at the end of the day, people see a great result from research. They completely forget all the work that took to getting there. And again, this is probably the end of a 20-year journey. So that hopefully we just did a small piece of the end part.
Wonderful. Well, thank you again for your presentation. And again, thank you to Peter Dundas and all of his staff for the great work and the service they provide to us here in Peel.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sato.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Good to see you again.
Thank you.
I wanted to say that Councillor McFadden and I served last term on the Emergency Services Committee, and hearing presentations like this and on each of the individual programs that Dr. Cheskis has spoken about was certainly very educational. And I really applaud the great strides that Peel Region has done. As we were reluctant to take over the paramedic service with all of its costs and issues, but I have to say, and your comments really bear truth to this, that here in Peel, we have expanded, and I really credit staff, our paramedics and Peter and Jeanette for moving ahead and really training our paramedics, expanding the program, and doing so much more. Because otherwise, the outcomes given today just wouldn't have happened.
I agree.
I'm very excited about the Frontier project. When it was first presented to us at the committee, it was just something extremely exciting. My husband suffered a stroke quite a few years ago now.
Really?
And it's when you've been through that and you recognize how important time is. And we're in the northwest part of Mississauga, and of course Trillium's in the southeast.
Yeah.
So you have that period of time. But I have to say that, as soon as he got down to Trillium, everything just went really quickly, moved very fast, and he's fine. But knowing that there is a drug like this that can be administered before that long journey to the hospital, I think it's very reassuring to both the patient and the family. So I'm very excited that we are doing it here in Peel. I think it's absolutely wonderful. The bystander CPR, last year Councillor Fonseca and I hosted a large CPR training, hands-on CPR. Brad, our educator trainer, did an absolutely outstanding job at Celebration Square. And we trained 500 residents at one time. We didn't. We were down there helping, but Brad trained 500 residents in how to do hands-on CPR.
Good for you.
And what we heard, at least what I heard, and I'm sure Chris as well, as we went through helping people and talking to them, was, gee, I didn't realize it was this easy. And even young children, there were a lot of children that were there learning CPR and listening to their comments. You'd say, well, why do you think it's important for you to learn CPR? Well, if my mommy or daddy had a heart attack, I know what to do now.
Yeah, and that's the key.
And it was something that I think we need to do a lot more of that. We're hoping to do one this year, and I'm planning some smaller ones in my own community.
That's great.
But I think just getting people, Annette, Councillor Groves mentioned about the liability issue, and those are the opportunities that you can tell people about liability. Getting them in large crowds. We did it right before a Zumba class. So it was actually World Cup had been on the screen. So we asked the people who had been watching World Cup to stay for it, and we combined it in between World Cup and Zumba. So we basically had a captive audience, which you have to pick your moments, right?
No, exactly.
Get the market audience, but. We have partnered so much with people like the Mikey Network. Brad did the defibrillator training as well, and putting the defibrillators in every school in Peel. And, there's so much being done here in Peel. We have all of these partners. And I would really encourage the other members of council that, it's not that hard to set up a group CPR training, hands-on CPR. We had no problem getting the dummies. That was
dummies.
We got the dummies. Yeah, fire departments have them. We have lots of those around.
Yeah.
We did actually St. John Ambulance did one on Halloween, and it was not as well attended. But we were there, but we didn't have as huge an audience. But we're getting out there. So I would really encourage. I don't think we have the Emergency Services Committee established for this term of council. Which I personally think is a shame, because I think that committee could be the one that works with our paramedics to come up with more educational opportunities and really, educate the public on what we're doing through the emergency services within Peel. And we had both fire and paramedics on that committee. And so I would like to suggest that we discuss whether or not we're going to reestablish that committee again. I found it extremely educational and helpful, and I think it would be a good thing, because it would give you and our paramedics that opportunity to discuss some of these projects that are ongoing. But thank you again.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Moore.
Thank you, and welcome back to Peel. It's always nice to see you.
Thank you, Lynn.
Mr. Chairman, I'd be happy to move receipt of the delegation today. I just want to make a comment. It's interesting that every time we have a presentation and we see the rising cost of healthcare, what it is today, and if we don't change the way we do business, what it's going to look like in the future. And it's just, headed for the skies. And Peel is very much a leader in terms of looking at alternative, well, you're calling it alternative pathways, but really looking at innovation. And I think that the rising cost, the escalating cost is what's driving a lot of that innovation. Research may have started a number of years ago, but people are really starting to pick up speed, and you've got more takers on the other end. And I know that Peel, whether it was the offloading at the hospital to reduce cost, the net result is that we're saving lives. And that's, whether it's driven by, being scared at looking at the future, whatever it is, we're all benefiting from it. But it does take leadership. I'd like to thank you for yours. Certainly the leadership of our paramedic and our health department here at the Region of Peel. In fact, we're leaders in so many things, and I think it's a reflection of the leadership that everybody has that common goal. So I want to thank you.
Thanks so much. Thank you.
Councillor McFadden.
Chair Kolb, I was going to say, I'm sorry, Dale, I haven't been here for a while. Give me credit, I haven't been here for a couple months. I know. Yeah, right.
I said, Councillor Unique, I said it in his younger days.
Yes, oh yeah, in his 30s. Of course, it's always wonderful to see you, and all the accolades have been said. But I have a question for Chief Dundas. Peter, could you come down for a moment? I just have one question, if you wouldn't mind. Sorry to interrupt you up there, but in the presentation, there was an item there about the specially trained paramedics that are going to be able to initiate this IV. Now, when do you expect that transition to happen? And are we going to just have one trained on each ambulance? And who pays for that training? Is that going to be part of the regional budget going forward, or?
So it's related, Sheldon's presentation was the IV piece with the pump is through the Frontier program, the stroke study. So ACPs are already trained, and some of our PCPs are already trained to do IV and use the pump through the training that Dr. Cheskis and his team put together. The alternate skill sets is related to the alternate pathways discussions that we have just in the last couple of months have just engaged the discussion on. It's still in its very preliminary rounds. I got together with Dr. Paul Hugeveen as sort of the lead on this, and he's sussing out right now the ideas and maybe some of the holdbacks to be able to do it. A lot of it would be done through grant funding, through many partnerships with the Ministry of Health, the Frontier study, huge grant through Brain Canada to be able to support the initiative. None of the costs related to the IV pumps, which we don't normally carry, or any the fridges were borne by the region. It's all supplied through the study groups. And we would have to discuss much further on the alternate pathways. This is a sort of a year, 2 year out type project.
I was just looking at the possibilities of having one specially trained paramedic on each ambulance. Would there be any union issues with that as to?
We haven't even explored that at this time. When you always get nervous when they say specially trained or advanced skills, enhanced skills. But that is something, and Sheldon knows, he hears it from me all the time, that we have to be very careful how we approach this. We want to do the right thing for the patients, but we need to be aware of all the other dynamics.
Well, thank you. I just wanted to make sure there was no extra cost to the regional budget, and that there wouldn't be any union issues as far as having one specially trained paramedic on an ambulance.
Yeah, and we don't even know if that format would be on every transport unit. It may be part of our response program. It could be a designated response out in the community. That is something that we would have further discussion on, and of course it'd be coming to council.
Good. Okay, thanks, Peter.
Thank you. Councillor Sato.
You can go sit down, yeah.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I would just like to move, I know Councillor Moore has moved receipt, and I did mention about the MS committee, or the Emergency Services Committee. I would like to put a motion forward that staff bring to the next council meeting information on that committee with an opportunity for reestablishment and appointment of members to it. If the next meeting would be appropriate.
We have dealt with that, so that we can do it again, but we need a 2/3 vote.
When did we deal with it?
February. February 26th.
I didn't think we voted on not having it.
We did.
Did we? Okay, I don't remember that.
But we can call the vote again. We get 2/3 support, and then we'll have a
Okay, well,
report from
I
them.
would move that we reopen the question. Is that what would be appropriate today?
Yeah.
That we reopen the issue of the Emergency Services Committee?
Okay.
we need 2/3 votes to do that.
All right, that's been moved by Councillor Sato, seconded by Councillor Perry. I'll take the vote right now. All those in favor? Let's see the hands. Okay. Opposed, if any? Carried.
So then I would move that staff bring to the next meeting.
Okay, and that's been moved by Councillor Sato and seconded by Councillor Parrish. All in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried. Thank you. And thank you, Dr. Cheskis. It's interesting because at this moment that we're in the chambers, my wife is involved with a program for stroke recovery. Like actually, it's a recovery program, recreation program for stroke survivors. And you're quite correct that she's tracked that the ages are getting younger. Particularly, she's been doing it for over 30 years. It's a program in affiliation with the City of Mississauga and the two hospitals in Mississauga, and it's growing too. And she's going to be really pleased with when I bring this information to her with respect to the drug.
I think it's one of those things that I think if you went around to council, everyone knows someone who's had a stroke.
Exactly,
And it's a different disease than cardiac arrest or heart attack. Stroke is something I think we all know people who've had stroke, and therefore that's why I think the potential is so great. So I thank you for your time.
And on behalf of council, I certainly want to thank you for the leadership that you play within the community, and particularly in your profession, as well as the research that your team has done, and the cooperation that you have with our staff here at the region as well.
Thank
So
you
thanks
so
again
much.
for being here.
Thank you.
A motion to receive the delegation moved by Councillor Moore and seconded by Councillor Innes. All in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried. Motion to move forward reports 8, 1, and 2, moved by Councillor Raz, seconded by Councillor McFadden. All in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried. A motion to receive report 8.1, moved by Councillor Downey, seconded by Councillor Groves. All in favor? And then motion to move report, or to receive rather, report 8.2, moved by Councillor Moore, seconded by Councillor Palashi. All in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried. Thank you. Our next delegation is Michelle D'Emmanuel and Edward Sellers from the Trillium Health Partners. Council's received the presentations. They're in your folders. And again, I would just ask, as I did the previous delegate, that he be respectful of our time. We have a very busy agenda today. But welcome.
Good morning, everyone. Chair Dale and members of Regional Council, thank you very much for the opportunity to be here today. As mentioned, my name is Edward Sellers. I serve as the Chair of the Board of Directors of Trillium Health Partners. I'm here today with Michelle D'Emmanuel, our President and CEO, who I'm sure many of you know, if not all of you. Also in the chamber are a number of members of our senior management team who have been involved in the development of the master plan, and the Chair of the Regional LIN, Mr. Graham Gobel, and its CEO, Mr. Bill McLeod. As was alluded to earlier in respect of innovation in Peel Region, at Trillium Health Partners, we're creating a new kind of healthcare for a healthier community. And we would like to share with you some insights into how we intend to achieve that mission and some of the challenges ahead for us. You may recall that 4 years ago, we said that we believed a merger of the Credit Valley Hospital and the Trillium Hospital would significantly benefit our community. We believe that coming together as one hospital would leverage our respective strengths and expertise to improve the overall quality of hospital care for our community. And we believe that by joining forces, we would also leverage our size and scope to achieve greater efficiency, freeing up resources that could be reinvested in patient care in our community. 3 years into the merger, we are seeing significantly positive results for patients, their families, and our community. We're caring for substantially more patients while keeping wait times down in emergencies and in key areas like cancer surgery and MRI diagnostics. We've created a far more integrated service platform and shared best practices to enhance patient care throughout the region. We've also generated significant administrative efficiencies. But even with that progress, we still face significant challenges with unprecedented demands for our services. As you know, our community has grown substantially and will continue to do so, and our population is aging. That reality is having and will continue to have a profound impact on the hospital. We know we need to do things differently to provide care now and to create the capacity we need in the future. And in that light, we are pleased to share with you today our master plan that should substantially address our capacity issues today, tomorrow, and for the next 20 years. Michelle is best placed to share the details with you on both our current state and the plan we have for the future, and I'll invite her to take the floor now.
Thank you, Mr. Sellers. If I can just share with Council first and foremost that what we're about to present today has really been based on several years now of high engagement within our community. We've had touch points with more than 2.4 million residents, which means we've talked to people more than once. And with that, I think you won't be surprised what we've heard. People want their services close to home, they want high-quality services, and they want access to those services when they need them. The chair of our board spoke about our vision, a new kind of health care for a healthier community. Not a new kind of hospital care, a new kind of health care. And so much of what we do is in partnership with many of the people who deliver both social services and health care in this community. But to change things, it will require courage. And again, I think we've seen already a delegation before that talked a lot about some of the courage that we've had in this region to do different things and new things. And our hospital is a very strong supporter of that. I don't know how much of you know about the new system, Trillium Health Partners, but it's the largest community hospital now in the country. Up there, you'll see 260,000 emergent and urgent care visits. We'll actually hit 272,000 this year, and I'm going to talk about that in a second. We also will be graduating our first set of medical graduates in our new medical school with our University of Toronto partners at the Mississauga campus. And we also, as you heard again previously, have a number of regional programs that service all of our region. We heard a little bit about cardiac. We have a regional cancer program. We have a stroke program that you heard about, cardiac surgery program, and so on. And so this is a hospital that services a large number of our population. 1.5 million patients will come through our doors in this year, and we have approximately a $1 billion budget. So it's a very large system of care. Just to give some of the councillors a sense that this is not a hospital that just services Mississauga. And again, particularly in our regional programs, we have patients coming from Caledon, Brampton, our South Etobicoke area, and then other parts of the region in Halton. The other thing that's important to recognize is the changing nature of the relationship of patients with the hospital. 30 years ago, you might visit the hospital once in a year, maybe once every 2 or 3 years. Now we're seeing over 70% of our patients more than once a year, sometimes upwards of 30 and 40 times a year, depending upon their disease. That changes the nature of how things must be delivered. I particularly want to pause on this slide and draw your attention to the right hand of it. As I mentioned, Trillium Health Partners will see 272,000 people through its 3 sites in urgent or emergent care. If you take Mount Sinai, Toronto General Hospital, Toronto Western Hospital, Princess Margaret Hospital, Toronto Rehab Hospital, St. Mike's Hospital, and Sunnybrook. They will see 297,000 people coming through their urgent and emergent care in the same year. You can see it is not very different. Those combined hospitals have 3,100 beds. Trillium Health Partners has just over 1,000 beds. We're doing things really well here in Peel. However, we're reaching our capacity, and we've reached our capacity. On any given day, there are 70 to 80 patients waiting in a hallway or in surge spaces. These are spaces, for instance, at our Credit Valley site, we have a space that is actually slated for demolition in this coming year as we build a new critical care area. A surge space is a hallway outside the emergency department. Healthcare in hallways is not the way to deliver healthcare. And so we know that we're efficient. In fact, if you were to return the same level of efficiency in our Mississauga Halton Lynn with the two hospitals, Oakville and the Trillium Health Partners, you'd return a dividend to the province of over $750 million a year because of the level of efficiency we're creating. And I'm sure if we add our sister hospitals of Headwaters and Osler, that number would go up. I know that you've had several reports over the last many years about some of the progress we've certainly been making on ambulance offload times and the work we do with our Peel regional partners in policing. However, I need to say that with 70 to 80 patients in hallways, and during flu season, upwards of 100 to 120 patients waiting, the ability to reduce these offload times has really reached its peak. However, as Dr. Cheskis said, we always ask how can we do better, and we continue to work with our partners to do so. I also know that you're very familiar with the issue of local share, not just for healthcare, but for almost any service in this region. And healthcare is affected by those services as well. Our mental health services in our community, our strategies on poverty reduction, the economic development work you do, even transportation and the work you're doing there, and the relief of stress in trying to get to and from either your work or your family or school. All of these things help in creating a healthier community. But we know that in our community, we do not have our fair share, and that puts, again, additional burden on services and on the hospital, which has become in some ways the safety net for some of those services that aren't there. I do want to assure you that we are trying to stretch every resource we have. We are retrofitting constantly our organization, our footprint as we call it. Last year we opened up 23 new beds at our Credit Valley site. We have 16 more beds opening up. But these aren't beds that were closed. These are doubling up in rooms that were really meant for singles. These are taking 2 or 3 rooms and reconfiguring them to get one more bed in. We are constantly looking at how we can do that, and I've informed the ministry several times in the last year that we have simply run out of space to do so. And I've also informed the ministry that in the next year or two, it will be a regular occurrence for us to surge into auditoriums during flu season. We're building partnerships to create new capacity. We have an outstanding partnership with Runnymede Health Centre, where they have dedicated 33 beds to our organization to be able to deal with rehab and slow stream rehab. And that's been an outstanding capacity builder that we've been able to do, and other partners that I've listed there. We are also looking at all kinds of new innovative programs. In fact, our DART program has eliminated by 60% admissions when people were being admitted so that they could wait for tests. We've reconfigured again the platform to be able to get that faster so patients aren't waiting. We're always looking for ways to innovate. And necessity is the mother of invention when it comes to our hospital. It's our role to continue to deliver outstanding services, but it is the province's role to build capacity. Just to give you a sense, we need 955 new beds in our region. If you were to build a 500 to 600 bed new hospital, just a little smaller than William Osler, you'd need 50 to 60 acres of space. And I'm sure if I asked our new mayor where 50 or 60 acres of space might be found in Mississauga or in South Etobicoke with our new mayor in Toronto, they'd be hard-pressed to point to a spot. That would also cost upwards of $120 million without putting one shovel in the ground. And so what we did with the help of Arlene and their leadership is we looked at our existing sites and how can we, A, deliver care for the future, B, do it in a cost-effective way, and C, take advantage of the outstanding investments that have been made over the last 30 years. Leverage our investments. We need to start now because we're already 149 beds short of that 955 I spoke about, and within a year, 316 beds short. That means more wait times. It means more hallway care. So I want to just very quickly go through what a master plan would look like on the existing 3 sites. For those of you who are familiar with our Mississauga Hospital, you'll know that we have just under 700 beds. A new expansion of that hospital would add 231 beds, and if you see the green to the back end of the existing hospital, that's where we believe we could fit it in with some additional parking decks. So deal with both parking and also with capacity. There's space to do it on this site. At our Queensway Health Centre site, that's the existing capacity. Many of you may be familiar with the Sheridan Mall, or the Sherway Mall, just east of there. The new hospital would house a 286-bed complex continuing care and rehab facility, something we don't have in this region. If you're in Toronto, for instance, and are a patient at any of those hospitals I've mentioned, you'll go to Toronto Rehab for your services, and that creates flow through the hospital. We don't have that in our region, and we're one of the few regions that don't. At our Credit Valley site, which I might say is one of our more challenging sites from a land perspective, it's landlocked. Hospitals are built on about 60 acres of land. It was built on just over 25 acres. But we have come up with a plan that would involve adding new patient care wing, where the heliport is for those who may know the site, and again, some additional parking to address that. We have some construction going on at the Credit Valley site right now, but I want to impress upon Council one thing, that expansion was built for, in the case of the emergency department, 100,000 patients coming through each year. By the time it opens, we'll be seeing 107,000 patients, possibly 110. On the critical care area, we only get 5 new beds. We're actually reconfiguring that hospital to really bring it up to code and up to standard and to create a better critical care unit. We will have 4 new operating rooms, but it's only net 2. But I also want to impress upon you, not one new bed came with this expansion. We asked for 51. It's hard to imagine new operating rooms, new critical care capacity, new emergent capacity with no new beds. We've asked the government for a $10 million initial grant. These are things to get us through the moment. A $10 million initial grant to build 39 beds at our Queensway site. That would help with flow immediately. We think we could build those within a year. We've asked for a master planning grant for more detail on the plan that I talked to you about on those 3 sites. What services would be where? How would we configure that construction and that architecture? How would we deal with the growth curves on the various programs? A lot of work still needs to be done. Our vision at this point is that we actually can physically do it. Now we need to put the details in place, and the grant would allow us to do that. The Urgent Care Center at our Queensway site helps to divert over 60,000 patients a year from just the congestion that would occur at our Mississauga site were it not there. And those who need to be admitted go from the Queensway to our Mississauga site. We believe North Mississauga needs an urgent care center today. And our plan calls for that. We will continue to invest in all kinds of innovative partnerships with our CCAC, United Way, and others to try to continue to drive efficiencies. And we believe in the next 3 years, we can drive enough efficiencies that in any other hospital in this province, you'd be closing 100 beds, we'll keep them open and serve more patients. We believe 5,000 more patients in the coming next 3 years by just, again, innovation and courage. And lastly, our board, subject to final approvals, will be approving a 221-bed long-term care facility that we hold the licenses on, and we work very cooperatively with the region on how best to do that. And so that provides us with some additional capacity as well if we use those beds effectively. These all get us closer to 955 new beds needed. I should just pause and say we actually need closer to 1,400 beds in this community, but we do believe that we can change the way we deliver care and keep people in their homes longer living independently. Lastly, if I could just before I go into the ask of this council, it would be remiss of me not to acknowledge the almost 11,000 people that work at Trillium Health Partners, our over 1,000 doctors, our over 2,000 volunteers, our 8,000 staff, who every single day are committed to your health. And it is through their sheer courage, dedication, compassion, and excellence that we've been able to deal with these capacity pressures for this long. But we are signaling very clearly now that we need to change this story. So with that, we would ask for the Peel Regional Council to support a motion in principle of moving forward with the next phase of discovery around a master plan for Trillium Health Partners. Thank you.
Thank you. My first on the list is Councillor Yanika.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to stand up, and I'm going to apologize in advance. I'm glad some of our paramedic friends are here, because by the time I'm done, you may have to strap me down. You got the brief presentation. I got the fuller one. As soon as I heard it, I contacted the mayor and said, Madam Mayor, you need to hear this right away, and I think she'll be speaking to it in a moment. This is beyond shocking. This is beyond appalling. This is beyond a travesty. This has reached the crisis point and then some in terms of how dramatic the need is. On a personal note, I shouldn't, but I will. I understand it firsthand because after all the great work Trillium has done in our constituency, the hospital that I was born at, when my mother was ill and passed away, she for a time had to spend her dying days in a corridor. Not the only one. That's appalling. Absolutely appalling. Putting that behind us, this is what I find absolutely unconscionable. You'd have to be the village idiots to not know that relative to where we are now in this situation, it's the Dutch boy in the dike sticking everything he can to stop the water, but it's lipping over and it's raining. And instead of saying, but we hope the rain will stop, we know a tsunami's coming. The population, this is the most powerful piece of data you will ever, percentages growth, doesn't mean it because we get lost. The most powerful piece of data any of us need to know, anybody at the province needs to know, that by 2041, in the Greater Toronto Area and Hamilton, forget the numbers and the percentages, we're adding Montreal and Vancouver. That's what's coming. We can't cope with what we have. That's what's coming, and the province doesn't have a plan. Number two, on the other side of the equation, the aging population. And all of the challenge. You're reading some of the stuff on dementia and everything else that's going on. That's the second tsunami. And we're just saying, it's okay, the dike might hold, we haven't got any other resources, and just pray a lot. So I was happy to move the motion. I'm going to stop. I think the mayor, and I think Mayor Jeffries, we're past that. We, through the mayors, through the chair, through the councillors, and we need an emergency meeting with the province of Ontario. We can't put the clock back 10 years, but God damn it, they'd better do something about this. because the last thought I will leave you with is in 26 years of public office, what I've always said is, places of religious assembly we might fight over, traffic we might fight over, this we might fight over, holiday designations we might fight over. But health is health. It crosses all lines. It's of good to everyone. No constituent would argue with it. So somebody wake up and let's fix this. With my apologies, thank you. I leave it with you to discuss further. Oh my God.
Thank you. Councillor Groves.
Oh my God.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I certainly support my colleague, Councillor Iannica, on this. I think we are reaching the crisis point. Thank you for your presentation, and I do refer from my clinic. It's 5 minutes away from your Queensway Sherway Garden Center, and when we can't treat the patients in our clinic, they're going right over there, and I will tell you, the care that is given to those patients is beyond excellent. We refer also to a lot of your specialists there. You have a great disease infection control center there. It is wonderful. It's life-saving. So I concur with Councillor Iannica. The province, I think, has lost sight of their core values, I guess, or core services. If you can't keep people healthy, you can't keep the economy healthy because they won't be able to work. So I certainly support that, and it's unfortunate to know that Peel region is one of the fastest growing regions, and they are not recognizing that. And we are, Mississauga, you said the Mississauga Halton Lynn, the funding is crazy. How underfunded we are. And I think that this council really needs to get on board and really get down to the province and say, you've got to wake up. You're sending us people. Every 5 years, you're telling us you need to take these many people. Peel region takes a lot of newcomers. As they come in, we take a lot of the newcomers. As you know, the newcomers, things revolve around diet, nutrition, culture, lifestyle. They end up in the hospitals. And I think part of what you were talking about with the recurring patients coming into the hospital, there's a doctor shortage. What is the province doing about that? And I think the reason you're seeing a lot of those patients coming back is because they have no family doctors. They use the clinics. The clinics cannot provide follow-up because sometimes the cases are so complex that a walk-in doctor in a clinic can't provide what a family doctor can do in terms of the follow-up and all that they need. So there's a real problem. And I think that, when the province hands off numbers to us and say, you have to take X number of people, one of the things that they don't do is they don't consider health. We talk about road, we talk about the sewer in the ground, we talk about the pipes in the ground, we talk about all those things, but they never have a plan about your health and what they need to do and the dollars that they need to put there. So in closing, Councillor Iannica said it well. I thank you for your presentation, and I really believe there needs to be some strong advocacy on our part to the province to say, we need our fair share here in Peel region. And finally, I will leave you with this, and I think that's what our folks at the province need to understand. An ounce of prevention is better than a pound of cure. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Crombie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I want to thank the two speakers, the councillors ahead of me, particularly to Michelle and Ed. Thank you for coming today. Michelle, when we heard you were coming to Credit Valley and now to Trillium, we were delighted, and we knew you would make the changes that needed to be made, find the efficiencies, merge the hospitals. You've done an outstanding job, but I can see or hear your frustration. I think we all feel like we're in a crisis mode, and that somehow in Peel and Mississauga we're being treated like second-class citizens at the province. So, it is the place where Councillor Iannica was born, where many of our children are born, are treated. Place where my father passed away as well. And I think what we don't consider here is the unintended consequences as well. Yes, we're not receiving the health care that we so deserve and and is our right, quite frankly, but it also tying up our emergency services drivers who are sitting waiting with patients, tying up our region of police who are sitting waiting with their patients, who could be out doing more productive police work, and yet are tied up at the hospitals because they can't be seen. There's a backlog in the system and there aren't beds for our people. So we're at a crisis, and it just speaks to that bigger issue that we aren't receiving our fair share here in Peel. The funding formula has not kept up with our rapid growth, and this is the issue that has to be addressed, and there has to be a wake-up call at the province to say, something's got to be done. So I don't know how we help you. I mean, I'm happy to second the motion if Councillor Groves hasn't, but I know we all want to work with you to assist you in our advocacy at the province, find other investment for you. I don't know what we can do, but whatever it is, we're delighted to work with you to help stem the bleeding, frankly, if I can put it in that kind of metaphor, and just fix this problem and get it right. So, I mean, it's so inadequate, and I'm so thankful to you for all you have done to, I don't know, just patch things together for so long, really. So we thank you, but this can't continue. And I think Councillor Unica has expressed that quite passionately for all of us. And I hope the message has been delivered to the media that's here with us today. Maybe they can help us send that message to the province. Help us, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sato.
Thank you. Good to see you both here today. The comments that have been made, and I have no problem supporting the motion. I think it's very appropriate. We have done our share here in Peel in helping with the expansion of the hospitals through our hospital task force that we set up many, many years ago now to finally use those levies that were floating around. And the money was put to excellent use. There has been money coming in, as you know, especially at Credit Valley, Michelle, for the expansions that have happened. But, from what Credit Valley was, I recall being on the original board of Credit Valley Hospital, and looking now to what we had back then, it's just amazing how the hospital has grown. But unfortunately, it hasn't kept pace with the growth in the community, particularly in the northwest part of the city, where the population has more than doubled. Councillor Carlson and I ended up splitting our wards because the populations had doubled over about 10 years, and that's the area Credit Valley serves. One of the concerns that I have always had, and we've raised it at council several times, is that when we have development applications coming forward, particularly now that we're seeing infill, and we know that they are going to have an impact on all of the services, including the hospital services, we do not get comments from the hospitals saying we are over capacity. And, I'm asking you again, because we've asked before, but I really wish that the hospitals, that you would come forward and say what you're saying today in response to development applications, because many of these will end up at the Ontario Municipal Board. And the proponents are pulling out places to grow and all of these wonderful provincial growth strategies, and they're not having the benefit of saying, but here is the infrastructure that cannot serve that particular growth. So I'll throw that out to you. The urgent care facility for the Northwest, I've been working with our MP Bob Delaney on that for, I think, about the last 6 years. And we've met with the Peel Halton Linds, who are very supportive of the urgent care centre. And it's a priority for me because I know how much it's going to help the hospital and to provide another location and get some people out of the parking lot. But could you just, this is something that through this term of office, Bob and I have met, and we are really pushing to try and get that done in this term. I think we've gone through 1.5 terms of working on it. How many patients would, if we had the urgent care in the Northwest, you mentioned how many were diverted at Queensway, what impact would that have on patient load at Credit Valley?
So we have 5 levels of patients that come through our emergency department, and we are seeing patients that are sicker. There is no doubt, and need to be at the emergency department. But we believe that upwards of 20% of that 102 or 4,000 coming through our doors today would find themselves potentially self-selecting there and getting the care they need, right place, right time. And then it provides, obviously, with the growth in the North Mississauga area that is occurring, that becomes a hub and a natural pathway that emerges in the medium to longer term.
So with us pushing for the urgent care facility, which is a priority for both Bob and myself, I don't want to risk. We're making this ask as well. What is the risk of losing one to get the other?
So let me start by saying that and thank you all for your comments, but let me start by saying that if we go about this the way communities have gone about this for the past 25 years, it will be 10 years before we put a shovel in the ground.
Exactly.
We don't have 10 years to wait. And so with that, we need a multi-pronged strategy. And so if you look at some of the things that we're doing now, building 39 beds, building the long-term care facility, that takes us 2 or 3 years down the road a little bit. And the urgent care center is one of those, what I would call short to medium-term measures to help to diffuse the situation, de-risk the situation as we build for a larger ask. And so I certainly appreciate that often we have to make choices, but we're at a situation now where my message to the province is you need a short, medium, and long-term strategy, and you actually can't pick between the two. And the master plan encompasses all of that so that they're building on each other and not investing scarce tax dollars into things that will be redundant or disposed of down the road.
Okay. Well, we have 2 locations in mind that are potentially available. One is owned by the province.
Yes.
By Metrolinx, actually,
Right.
but it's owned by the province. And the other is very close to the hospital. It would require a complete new build on land. But there are potential locations that we have sort of scoped out. And so we'll continue to work with you, and perhaps you and Bob and I could sit down and go back to the LHINs and see what our strategy could be on working towards
And
that.
the $5 million ask for the master plan would encompass the planning for that urgent care center.
Yeah, I'm just afraid that, if we don't grab the land, especially the vacant land one, if you don't get at least an option in on the land now, it's going to be built out for something else. And land is becoming scarce in the Northwest, so
absolutely,
it's waiting for the province to do how long they take a study may not work.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you.
Mayor Jeffrey.
Thank you, Michelle, for coming. It's nice to see you again. I guess I just wanted to remind this table that we actually represent 3 different communities, and this is not about the report you bring today. We all represent, 2 of the 3 really represent high growth areas, and those are always going to be a challenge for us to manage. But I think also what I wanted to say is that I realize that people are passionate about these issues, and I get it, and I understand it, but there's a lot of context that we don't have around this table, and I speak from the position of having been an MPP at the province and a minister, and knowing that that some of the language today has been unhelpful if you want to build a better relationship with the province of Ontario. So to say they don't have a plan or they've lost sight of core services, I know not to be true. So this is about us getting what we believe to be our fair share. And I would agree with many people around this table that it has been a challenge to receive better funding. But we have the business case, and we need to be at the table to have that conversation. We all seek better funding formulas. I have a hospital, Brampton area regional representatives around this table have a new hospital that's 5 years old that was designed to serve 90,000 people. 170,000 people came through the doors last year. So you can keep building hospitals, but if the growth keeps happening, you can't match it, you can't keep up with it. So you can blame the people that are part of that healthcare continuum, but we're all struggling with this. So I guess I would prefer that that we find a way to work with all of our healthcare partners. I have no problem supporting this motion, but at the end of the day, this is in isolation. We need to work with all three LHINs that represent our regions. We need to have a concerted conversation with the province of Ontario, and I'm happy to do that. But I think, you know, we need strong advocacy, and I can tell you that I'm happy to hear that Councillor Sato is working with her MPP. I can tell you that not all MPPs are helpful. So I went to many Central West LHIN meetings, and I was the lone MPP in the room advocating for my community. I did it month after month, and I got what I needed for my community. But they're not all the best that they should be. So it falls on all of our shoulders to be the best advocates, to make sure we stay at the table and we're persistent in making sure we bring the best business case for Brampton, Caledon, and Mississauga. So I just want to say that today because I think it's important that we have that fulsome conversation, and to be railing at one of the partners who's going to help us is not helpful in the long term. So I want to be helpful. I want to work to make sure all of our hospitals and all of our healthcare providers have the services, but we need to be looking at this in a comprehensive manner. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Moore.
Thank you very much, and certainly the Fair Share for Peel has been on now for, 25 years? I said we need to stop going with statistics and we need to go with one question. Why? Why aren't you giving us the money that we deserve? Put the ball back in their court and ask them the question why. I'm going to support the motion because clearly we are underfunded and we've got a long way to go to even reach what other municipalities and other cities in this province are enjoying. Having said that, everybody around this table has a role to play. You cannot throw money at healthcare, create more beds, build more buildings, and expect that we are ever going to meet the needs of this community. At our local level, we can do a better job at planning. We need to create communities that are more walkable, that encourage a healthy lifestyle, and we've got a role to play here at the table. I just look in the rearview mirror, and when you look back at, and I was reminded of this a couple weeks ago when I was at a conference, in the rearview mirror you see things like cholera and dysentery that took, mass number of deaths. The solution was not the healthcare system. The solution was water treatment. And the solution to, or part of the solution moving forward, is not the healthcare system alone. It is everybody taking responsibility and ownership. The solution is eating better and exercising more. And when you look at the healthcare facility that's being built in Brampton, and there's a lot of controversy, is it a hospital, is it a hospital? Well, there's hospitals out there that don't have a single bed, but we call them a hospital. I think Women's College is one of them. So we need to change our definition in our minds of what is a hospital. The Peel Memorial Hospital redevelopment site is going to be the Centre for Integrated Health and Wellness. We have to help people understand that they own their health, and help them to eat healthier, help them to incorporate healthy activities into their daily life. It's long overdue. We've always known what the solution is to our healthcare needs, and now finally the province has recognized that. And the one in Brampton, once we recover from the tragedy there a couple weeks ago or a week ago, it is going to be a step in the right direction. I think is going to be a model that yourselves can use as to hold up. And let's face it, 5,000 people I think are estimated to work at that site when it's opened in its full capacity, and it's going to serve the residents of the region of Peel, not just the city of Brampton. But the fact is that and the point I want to make is we all have responsibility. It's everything from local planning to our health department here at the region. It's about us leading the way, showing that we're leaders, and it's helping the community come along and recognize that they have a significant responsibility in terms of owning their health. So that's just a comment I want to make. Healthcare, throwing dollars at healthcare is not the only solution to this problem.
Mr. Chairman, just two quick comments. First off, I couldn't agree more about the system approach to solution, and my two colleagues, Mr. Anderson and Ms. Rugg at Headwaters and Osler, we work very collaboratively. We are constantly looking at, because of some of the pressures we're under, how best we are using our resources as a collective system, and our two LHINs supporting that work. And so, again, I just to acknowledge that approach that we take and really to support the comments that you made. Secondly, with respect to the health promotion and prevention side of it, it was probably the most passionate we felt in terms of our new strategy for the hospital, that it wasn't about a better hospital or building hospitals. It actually was about healthier communities. I chair the Mississauga Healthy Stewardship Council, and it is a group made up of our chief of police, head of the school board, our public health folks. It's just a wide range, including also the head of United Way. And we spend time on the very issues that you're talking about. We've got to continue to work on two levels. Having said that, I think it's fair to say that because of the build around both infrastructure and service, we are at a deficit.
Oh, no question.
And so that makes
and we have been
that
for
much more
25 years.
challenging.
Yeah. Thank you.
Councillor Sprovieri.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for the presentation. I want to say, first of all, that I do agree that Peel Region should have its fair share. I totally agree. The problem we're faced with, and the province is faced with, is that I believe the last time I checked, 50% of its budget was being spent on healthcare. 50%. And as you know, they have so many pressures. And our mayor from Brampton probably is aware of all the pressures that are across the board: education, infrastructure, and the two main pressures, and of course, healthcare it's huge. Now, I have no problem supporting the motion, but I like my colleague, Councillor Moore, I believe that we are at a crisis. The province cannot meet the need. They just don't have the resources. They're in a huge deficit as we speak. And I believe they're scratching their heads on how to try to give us some equal funding compared to Toronto, where the hospitals have been there. And I know that they've been expanding the hospitals because I've been taking my mother downtown to Princess Margaret, and I see all the development with that the hospitals have had there, especially with Toronto General and Mount Sinai and even Princess Margaret. They've been expanding because they are very specialized, and people from all over the province go there. We also know that the province is closing down hospitals in the small towns across the province. I read not too long ago. There's a huge problem in the province trying to take control. I believe that there has to be the service, of course, and it's not fun when you take I took my mother to the North Finch Hospital there for an emergency back in the early part of the winter, and she's 94 years old, and she stayed for a whole day in a corridor waiting to be looked at. She had an infection, lung infection, and she's a 94-year-old, and she was not the only one. And I was sitting there, I was saying, what's going on here? I took her also to Peel Region on Christmas Eve. We were there for 8 hours here at our Brampton Hospital. It was not fun sitting around watching all the other people going through this trauma. So, but the other issue that, as Councillor Moore mentioned, is that I don't believe building more will solve the problem, because it's like roads. The old saying goes, you build them and they'll come and use them. And the hospitals are the same way. I think that when there starts to be a shortage of something, people start using their minds and look for other solutions, like we're doing with transit, mass transit. I think people eventually will say, you know, if I go to the hospital and I have to sit there for 12 hours to get looked at, maybe I should start looking after my own, take some responsibility. And I believe even here, and Councillor Yonika, this morning we had our second meeting with the fluoridation committee, and you know, there's a lot of researchers are saying that there's just too many chemicals in our environment, in our water, in our food, that's causing the health problems. Not just simply because people are not active, but there's a lot of chemicals. My niece is a teacher up in Barrie, and she was telling me that they're finding fish there that they don't know if they're males or females, and it's because of all the hormones going in from the birth controls that are going into the water system. It's screwing up the genetics of people. So imagine what it's doing. There's too many chemicals in our water. There's too many chemicals in our food. And that's what we have to focus on. We have to get rid of as many as we can. Get rid of the ones that we don't need, and let's try to bring a healthier lifestyle in our society, that we don't have to rely on, keep on building and building and building more hospitals and more hospitals, because they're not sustainable and we can't afford them. So I just wanted to put my thoughts on that. And I think that people have to become more responsible. We know that people are, you know, I have a friend of mine that he has such a terrible attitude. Just, I don't care if I get sick. I just go to the hospital. They give me some pills, and and I keep going. And and the guy's overweight. He's like 220 pounds, my age, and he looks like he's going to drop any day. And he just, I don't care. I'll just go to the hospital and get looked after.
He's not your friend anymore.
So anyway, I don't think that the simple solution. I don't believe that.
Just give his name too.
No. I don't believe the simple solution is just to build more hospitals. I think that it's a combination of efforts, and in order to get this under control, I would be interested, really interested if staff can get this for us, Mr. Chairman. If staff can perhaps work on it, just to get a comparison how Quebec and British Columbia, how they fare in their hospitals, if they have the same problems, if they have the same rate of health problems as we do here in Ontario. It would be really interesting to see, because I know Quebec and British Columbia are becoming very environmentally responsible, and they're addressing a lot of these environmental issues in their surroundings.
What I can share with you, Councillor, is Ontario spends the lowest per capita than any other province on healthcare.
Councillor Sprovieri, I think I'll give direction to staff. I think they'd be pleased to come back with a report that would highlight
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much.
Okay. Councillor Mahoney.
Thank you very much. Curta Valley Hospital is in my ward, and with all due respect to Councillor Sprovieri, I think we got a little bit off topic there. I think that the investment in our hospitals is really a crucial and vital investment in our community and in our future. I have seen firsthand the good work that is done not only at Curta Valley but at Trillium in general, and I've also seen some of the holes and deficiencies and things that we need to do. So I'm very pleased and want to thank you for coming in and raising this issue. And I think council as a whole needs to be united and be able to go to the province, ask for the money, and present our case. So as the last speaker, I'm very happy and pleased to second this motion, and I'm sure our council colleagues will all support it as well. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Please do.
As a volunteer governor who's been involved in first the Trillium Health Centre and now Trillium Health Partners for 8 years, and as the chair of the board, having been involved intimately from the development of the first stages of the master plan to what has been presented to you and to others, I want to assure you that this has been a highly rigorous and demanding process on staff. They have been thoughtful and tasked to try to make sure that the ask was proportional to the need and that it was reflective of our desire to pursue a new kind of health care for a healthier community that involved the devolution of care in non-tertiary settings out of the hospitals. So the ask isn't about building the same type of hospital that's been built before, in the same number for the same purpose. It's purposefully designed to reflect the idea that we need to get people out of hospitals and to develop a new system of care.
Excellent point.
Thank you.
Well then. Mayor Jeffrey.
So I didn't ask for this as I made my comments earlier, but could I ask that we have staff work on a plan for us, considering all of the joint areas all the different hospitals that are in the region that we all represent, to work on a joint strategy that we collectively can have speaking notes on, that we can go and talk to our provincial counterparts on. I think we need a strategy, and better armed, we will do a better job, and we can collectively write letters to support our local hospitals. But we do need to be all on the same page, and it would be helpful to have that information available through our staff.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think.
So if I could ask for
Well,
direction to that.
staff for sure. I think that's an excellent point.
Thank you.
Thank you. My list keeps getting longer again.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Have you calmed down?
I hope so.
Okay, Councillor Yanika.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to say, and if need be, I apologize for the forcefulness, but it's heartfelt, and you all know that. In fairness, though, to the presenters, I think we shortchanged them a bit, because I got the 1 hour presentation, page by page, for some very detailed. So in answer to some of the questions, I saw where we're trying to take the old 5-day stay and make it a 3-day stay. The 3-day stay is a 1. All of that was explained. What blew my gasket, and you heard it today as well, was when the gentleman that came to see me, I said, well, as your councilman, I look forward to zoning the property. In fact, I'll give you a stamp. We'll zone it right now. And he said to me, first time in my life, you might not be around, Councillor. I go, why is that? I hope to be around a while more. Well, you'd better win 2 or 3 elections, because it's 10 years away.
Yeah.
That's what blew my gasket. And you heard Michelle reiterate that. That is unacceptable. I hope that's the strongest thought that I leave you with. We need a plan now, and hopefully this is the first step towards it. Thank you.
I think everyone spoke well today, and certainly you're preaching to the choir here. But your report, no question, opens everyone's eyes, and I hope it opens the eyes of those at Queen's Park, and I hope they open the vault where they keep the money in Queen's Park as well to help you. But I just wanted to add one other thing that I think where we may be able to help, and I hope we can, and that is the province has undertaken a review of the development charges. And I'm going to ask our staff, when they report back to us, to strongly look at including the hospital levy back in the development charges. And that may not help with the current situation that we're in here, but it's certainly going to help with growth. And just like Councillor Yanika said, the amount of people that are going to be in the GTA, and particularly in Peel, over the next 20, 30 years, we need that in the levy. We need that in the development charges. We need that levy. So direction to staff to do that as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And thanks so much for your presentation. Move receipt of the delegation. Mayor Crombie, Councillor Yanika, all in favor. And I think this motion is very appropriate. Sure, I'll read it actually, because for the listening public as well. It's moved by Councillor Yanika, seconded by Councillor Mahoney. Whereas Trillium Health Partners has more emergency and urgent care visits than any hospital in Ontario. And whereas the hospital conducts more surgeries than any hospital in Ontario. And whereas the hospital cares for a growing number of patients in surge spaces and hallways waiting for an appropriate bed to become available. And whereas the hospital serves a community that has been growing with a seniors population that is expected to triple over the next 20 years. And whereas the hospital is already short 149 beds today, with a forecasted need of 1,400 more beds in 20 years. And whereas Trillium Health Partners has submitted a long-term capital master plan to the Ontario government to build 955 new beds across the hospital's 3 sites. Therefore, be it resolved that the Region of Peel urges the Province of Ontario to invest $5 million to move forward with the next stage of planning for Trillium Health Partners' capital master plan, which would include a detailed description of programs and services and confirmation of the estimated bed and space requirements for the hospital over the next 20 years. And further, that staff work with the hospital and report back to Regional Council on the progress of the master plan. And it asks that that be copied to all MPPs in Peel as well, circulated to them. All in favor then? Recorded vote?
All those in favor, please stand.
I'm going to stay.
No.
Go ahead.
Councillors Carlson, Mayor Crombie, Councillor Downey, Councillor Fonseca, Councillor Gibson, Councillor Groves, Councillor Ionica, Councillor Innes, Mayor Jeffrey, Councillor Mahoney, Councillor McFadden, Councillor Medeiros, Councillor Miles, Councillor Moore, Councillor Perleski, Councillor Parrish, Councillor Raz, Councillor Sato, Councillor Shaughnessy, Councillor Sprovieri, Mayor Thompson, and Councillor Tovey. It's unanimous.
Great. Thank you. We have one other delegate. Natalie Ruskov, Project Manager, Ministry of Transportation, and Neil Ahmed, Senior Project Manager with Group Limited. Welcome. Please proceed.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chair and Regional Council. Thank you for allowing us some time to present to you today. My name is Natalie Ruskov. I'm from the Ministry of Transportation. I'm the project manager for Stage 2 of the GTA West Environmental Assessment Transportation Corridor Study. And with me, I have Neil Ahmed from Group. He is the consultant project manager from Stage 2. Neil was also the consultant project manager on Stage 1. We are here to present to you a status update on the GTA West EA study. Last year, the project team, at the end of the year, reached its first major project milestone when we held a series of public information centers across the study area. At the PICs, we presented to the public the work that we had been doing since the start of the study, which was in 2014, and we were presenting primarily the work that we had been doing on generating route alternatives. So we would like to share that information with you today, and we would like to seek your input on that information because seeking your input is an important part of this environmental study process that we're trying to undertake. I'm going to turn the presentation over to Neil now, who will give you the technical details of the work that we've been doing.
Thank you, and good morning. I wanted to give you a bit of an overview of the whole project initially. The figure on the left side of your screen there is the whole study area. It encompasses the corridor. It's over 50 kilometers long from Highway 400 in City of Vaughan all the way through Peel and to the 401-407 interchange in Halton. This is a very significant corridor. I wanted to make mention of the Stage 1 work we did. This was never just a highway project. We did spend a lot of time, as many of you will know, looking at different ways to provide transportation improvement to service the growth that is coming to the whole area. We have been looking at optimizing existing infrastructure, including road and rail, using existing corridors, widening existing highways, looking at transit, what can that offer in terms of opportunity for us, and looking at all of those different techniques. We still need more. Metrolinx has got a good program coming. They're already into providing infrastructure improvements, but we will need a new transportation corridor, including a new freeway and new transit way to accommodate the growth that's coming. And that's the focus of the Stage 2 work. The actual corridor that we are looking at introducing here is represented here. It's a cross-section, shows a 110-meter right-of-way for a new freeway facility. This would be similar to Highway 410, different 407, different corridors you'll see in the GTA, and as well a 60-meter transitway corridor, similar to the Mississauga Transitway, a dedicated road for buses with stations, and this is a new opportunity to provide both of these new facilities. We are going to be spending some time looking at access. We, of course, will be having connections with all the provincial freeways at 401, 410, 427, and 400, but we are going to be looking for other interchanges with existing and perhaps new arterial roadways, So we have in the green there, some of the key constraints and considerations that we're introducing into this look at interchanges. And we are going to be introducing or offering municipal staff an opportunity to help us with finding homes for these new interchanges. Where will these be best placed to offer opportunity to the growth that's coming in our communities? And so that's an upcoming series of meetings we're going to be having with municipal staff. This is just a snapshot of the different databases we have been using in our work in arriving at a preferred corridor, which is a pretty big undertaking. We need a lot of different data, and this is really just indicating that we have been collecting readily available data from municipal sources, from the conservation authorities, and other sources as they become available. In helping us develop a number of overlays that will represent the complex nature of the area that we're working within, and helping us understand where the best opportunities are for this new facility. This graphic here represents what we're calling the short list of route alternatives. In our process, the starting point was the blue dashed line work, which was representative of our study area, and within there we wanted to look for the best opportunities for a new route for this corridor. And these lines, and the color is not really important here, they just distinguish the different one from one another. But these represent the best opportunities that we think would provide for this new corridor. From 400 all the way over to the 401, 407, with connections to the 427 extension and the 410 corridor. So this is where we landed in terms of the level of detail and the evaluation that we've done to date. This becomes the starting point of moving forward with more evaluation, more analysis, more field work in determining which of these is the preferred alternative. Focusing on the Peel region area, we see that there are a number of different alternatives that span through this corridor, all the way from northeast Brampton, across through Caledon, and down into the northwest area of Brampton and across the Credit River. We have opportunities to provide connections at 410, which include the existing 410 corridor, as well as a couple of new corridors to provide connection to the east-west facility. We have a couple of options at the 427 on the right side there of how to connect in with the east-west facility for that corridor. And we have a couple of different connections across the Credit River. We see that in any one spot there are more than one alternative in any location. If we have a serious constraint with one of those options, we will then have an opportunity to look at other options. So we wanted to have more than one option in any area of this corridor in order to allow us the best chances of success here. The black circles and X's were presented at the Public Information Center number 1 late last year, and really represent a number of different alternative locations for arterial interchanges. We are going to be getting municipal staff input on this whole picture, and we'll be including that in our preferred route alternative picture as we move forward. The other significant part of the project that we've been introducing is a response to the development pressure that we've been having. Every time we come to council, every time we go to any council, we are always faced with a lot of concerns about development pressures, and this is an opportunity that we've had at this point to start to shrink the area of interest for us. The orange area represents the area in which our short list of alternatives are located, and the green areas are areas where we don't really have a lot of interest any further, and we think that any development in those areas may be able to proceed without provincial interest or provincial concern. So that's the distinction that we have been providing. We are getting some positive feedback from the development community and from municipalities on this picture, and allowing some development to proceed in the interim. As we move forward and select a preferred alternative, we will see this orange area shrink even further, allowing further development to proceed then, and we're talking about towards the end of this year to see that start to happen again. In terms of our consultation process, we have been getting a lot of interest, of course. Late last year, we had a series of 3 public information centers, had over 750 people attend those. We are having another similar round of public information centers to present our preferred route towards the end of this year. November-ish is what we're looking at. And we're also having a series of public workshops shortly, later this spring, to help, to give the opportunity to the public and to the community, helping us with our process of selecting a preferred alternative, helping us through some of the analysis work that we're going to need to do. We have a number of different consultation opportunities at the bottom of that slide as well that we're also offering. In terms of our next steps, we always like to make a point that we are staying on schedule. We realize everybody is waiting for this study to be over, get some definition to where this corridor is going to be. We are on schedule, and we continue to put emphasis on that. We are going to be going through a process of refining our alternatives that we showed you earlier, making sure we've got the right selection of alternatives there to work forward on. And our next big step is to select a preferred alternative and the interchange locations, along with a number of development workshops and other meetings that we'll be having to get the community, get the different agencies involved in our process. We're presenting the preferred route late this year, and we'll then move on with preliminary design of that in the next step. And that's our presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. I do have a list, so stay in place, please. Mayor Thompson.
Thank you very much, and welcome, and thank you for coming again. I guess I got a few questions, but first of all, I would like to analyze, first of all, I want to say thank you on slide 9. It is helpful, and I can tell you the town and council, we really appreciate on some of the releases you've done for us, and that's greatly appreciated. I got quite a few questions, and Mr. Chairman, if it's okay, when we're done with the questions, the delegation, I'd like to bring 6.1 forward, because I do have some questions that tie into that while the delegation's here, if that's
That'd
possible.
be very appropriate. Yeah.
Thank you. My first question is there been any consideration with any new north-south connections into this highway corridor? I know you look at the east-west, but we have to look at the big picture, and I know we've really defined interchanges and whatever, but provincial, especially with the growth that we have above the Greenbelt now, is impacting coming down through Caledon. We got 74% commuter traffic coming on our town roads, not just our region roads. The challenge is have we looked at, are we going to consider any future, like the 410 or the future of the 427? Is there anything that's going to be recommended out of this study that we need to look at how we connect to bring people down through? Versus, I think I'm going to be very selfish, absolutely, as the mayor. I want my town roads back.
Oh, well, north-south connections are a part of the study. Of course, we're looking at a few that are going through Caledon, which I think will definitely connect Caledon to the GTA West corridor. But any connections that are beyond the study area are, of course, up for future study. And what we're trying to do is to select the ones that you've seen to identify which ones will connect to the east-west corridor.
And I think what it is we're looking at the businesses from Alliston, the trucking industry that's coming down just-in-time delivery. It's killing our local connectivity. And I think that's what we're just saying. And I know this is the feedback we're getting as Caledon Council since your delegation is, what about all the stuff that's coming down out of the north? Is that being considered? So I guess this is why I'm on public record, why I'm feeding that back through you today. Okay. The other one is designated truck lanes. Is that still a major commitment looking at that? I know we talked HOV lanes, but as far as goods movement, have we looked at truck lanes?
Yes, that's an excellent question. We are including a good hard look at goods movement priority measures in our study, and truck lanes is something that we are looking at. We had a workshop last year with industry, with some of the agencies to come up with some ideas on what could be introduced into this new corridor to support goods movement, because it primarily will be servicing some of the connections in terms of goods movement across this whole area. And we wanted to take the opportunity to introduce things that would actually make sense and work for the trucking industry. So we have a long list of reasonably good alternatives. We are going to be doing more work on shortening that down to the right package that will fit within the corridor. Some of those will be potentially lane use for trucking. Some of those may be electronic efficiency improvement opportunities. But we have a long list of these things, and we'd like to pursue that this year. And we'll give you a good idea what we're packaging together at our next session.
Thank you. And one more thing, and I, as you know, I did mention this at the Caledon, but I'll just bring it here because it does involve the region as well, is looking at a hybrid between 10A and 10C, I do believe, is to find if we can look at maybe using Heart Lake Road as the preferred route. And if you can please give that some consideration as well, I would really appreciate it. And having said that too, is I see with your community workshops, I'm greatly appreciative. And Mr. Chairman, I will bring this back when we talk about 6.1 because I think it's appropriate there. Especially my farm community, you know, do we start fighting this the same as what Halton did, or do we work through the situation? And I think they want to work through the situation. Through our previous mayor and administration, which I was part of, and I want to continue that on, is that we agreed that we'd work with them through the process. And we're talking about wanting to set up a workshop, working with the Region Appeal, and I'd love to have you with it. Because we need Brampton, we need the Region Appeal, the town of Caledon, and its residents and its farmers. And I did find a little offensive in the one report that came from the Region Appeal saying, well, we want to keep it as immediately south as much through the farmland. Well, the big thing is we're trying to protect our family farms, and maybe keeping it directly south is not a good idea. We have to look at how we're going to mitigate the impact on my farm community, which I'm very passionate that you know very well that I am. Having said that, I hope you can work with us, that we can have a working group to deal with our situation, because it is going through Caledon, it's impacting my communities that I represent here, and my council mates, I'm sure, are much in agreement of that. So that's a commitment we've made to our community, and I think it's timely that we want to move forward on that, and I hope we can have your cooperation, and maybe we can do something combined, because I think the big thing is there's different places where this road's running that we need to look at. My biggest concern, if you do, in the report that was sent from the Region Appeal, and I wish they had consulted with us, is you get it too far south. If we ever need to do a ring road and you need to run it through Guelph, through the north part of Halton, I know they talk about Greenbelt and Niagara Escarpment, and I have a very hard tolerance, so does my council on that, is it's constantly being ripped apart and being mined for gravel, and then you worry about a road that's going to look neat. I have a real issue with that. But having said that, I think we've all know big picture thinking. This is a regional solution right now, but a provincial solution is a ring road. And we know that it has to go to Guelph and it has to go to Fort Erie. We know that that's the eventual thing. So I just do not want to close the opportunity. If you're going to tear my community apart, let's do it right. And I think you've heard me loud and clear in the past on that. So, Mr. Chairman, if it's okay with you, I will hold the rest of my comments back when we bring the report forward.
Yeah, we'll bring it forward. It's most appropriate. Councillor Ennis.
Thank you for coming today and your presentation. I just wanted to ask a point of clarification because I heard something a little bit different a couple of weeks ago when you presented to Caledon Council. With regards to your process, it was my understanding that you'd be coming back later this year with a preferred route, not routes. However, during your presentation here, you mentioned routes.
Well, certainly the idea is one route. That's what we're after here, and there will be connecting routes as well on the 427 and 410 corridors. So those together will be the final outcome, but it will be one alternative for that whole package.
Okay. That being said, I will reiterate my comments that I presented to you at Caledon Council. I would respectfully request again that the province provide the municipalities in the region with the GIS mapping. Approximately half of this route of the GTA West Corridor goes through the town of Caledon. You're asking for us to provide our comments and to provide intelligent comments and responses back to you in the best interest of our residents. We need to ensure that we know what those mappings are. These are the people that live here. They know the land better than anyone else. They farm it, they protect it, they know the natural heritage and the features. And if you truly have an open and transparent process, which is the very beginning of your presentation, I think that it's only fair that the ministry provide this mapping so that we can make those comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Jeffrey.
So I just presented a motion, Mr. Chair. I believe you have it in your possession. I just wanted to get on the record that I thank you for your presentation, that the City of Brampton is supportive of the province's initiative, and certainly we believe a new GTA West transportation facility will play a very important part in serving Brampton's employment areas in the north and east of our city. And I guess what we want to do is we have a number of landholders who are holding their breath, not sure what they're going to do. In one particular case, I can think of a religious institution, a cemetery that will be impacted quite substantially by the decision. So I guess we want the project team to expedite the determination of those preferred routes so that we can move forward with the kind of planning that we need to do in order to make sure we take advantage of any employment opportunities that are available to us. So I just wanted to put us on the record, and Councillor Gibson is supporting it. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a motion to receive the delegation by Mayor Thompson, second by Councillor Tovey. All in favor? Opposed, if any, carried. Also a motion to move forward reports. Yeah. I'm moving it forward now. I'm right in the middle of it. I was moving a motion from Mayor Thompson, second by Councillor Medeiros, to move forward reports 6.1 and 7.2. And Mayor Thompson, you'd like to speak to that? All in favor, though, first? Carry.
Thank you. The one thing I would like to talk about is 6.1, and it's going forward, and I see the motion on the table, and I have no disagreement. I agree with what you're doing. My challenge is going forward, I would like to see what we can do working with you, because if we're going to bring the same players to the table, let's deal with our Caledon issues as well. And I'm willing to, pick up the cost and host it at the fairgrounds where it's accessible to everybody, and let's lay it out and see what works the best for our community, and at least give better intel in to try to help expedite the process. And I think it's extremely important. And the one thing I will say is, as far as the agriculture, the refined focus analysis, I know my farm community is extremely upset, and I was taken back when I read that report, but having to read through it, I do think we have huge opportunity in going forward and making the best of it. And the other thing with general comments, I was hoping that the region would have picked up with our goods movement. We would have recommended bike lanes. But what I was going to ask out of this report, and maybe we can tie this to the motion, so I'm going to ask Mayor Jeffrey and Councillor Gibson if they would consider maybe an amendment that we ask the Peel Region. Well, what I was going to ask was the Peel Region, the City of Brampton, the Town of Caledon, and its landowners that are caught up in this area all meet together to find what the best solution is to expedite the processes you're asking, because it's affecting our employment lands as well. The graveyard, the cemetery, I totally understand, and that's been in a plan for quite some time. And I have about a dozen of similar issues that you do that I haven't site specifically said, but I'm just thinking we're at the time now that I'm just saying if you would be amenable, I would like to add that if we all can work together to bring your initiatives forward, but if we can, through this motion and direction, that we all work together to resolve the challenges we have to expedite the process.
Direction's been given, will be given in that respect, for sure. Councillor Tovey.
Yes, thank you very much for your presentation. Just a quick question. When you were doing this study, was there any thought of looking at putting some kind of a rail corridor through here as well, maybe to get freight around and free up some of our GO lines, or move? Was there any consideration given to that?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. We in the earlier part of our process, we were looking at multimodal opportunities, looking at using rail in a better way. And around that time, Metrolinx came along and had a plan for a lot of different initiatives to introduce better transit for the whole area. We've really adopted that, the good things that they're offering in terms of better GO Rail services, bus rapid transit facilities. A lot of different things all apply to what we were trying to do in the first place. So we really just adopted those and tried to build on to those in some way that we can. And so what we're adding to that picture is a new transitway corridor in this new corridor to integrate with all of those earlier proposals from Metrolinx.
Yeah, I was more interested in whether or not you'd actually looked at, maybe with CN and CP about moving freight in that direction to free up GO lines.
So we had a look at using rail in a better way, and certainly there is some recommendations in our Stage 1 report that talks to using rail in a more efficient way, and that's really the long-haul rail that becomes an opportunity rather than short-haul, which would always come by truck pretty much. But in terms of whether there's any opportunity to put a new rail line through this area, that's really not possible because of the tight geometric that they have and the lands that they require, and really the service that they provide. It wouldn't really offer the sorts of improvements that we're looking for goods movement and communities.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I have a motion to receive Report 6.1, moved by Councillor Miles, seconded by Councillor Fonseca. All in favor? And then we have a motion by Mayor Jeffrey, seconded by Councillor Gibson, whereas the Region Appeal is supportive of the province's initiative to provide additional capacity for the movement of people and goods in the Western GTA, and whereas in particular a new GTA West transportation facility will play an important role in serving the Region Appeal's employment areas in the affected areas of the region. Therefore, be it resolved that the Region Appeal recognizes and respects the extended EA and consultation process for this complex project, but encourages the province and the project team to expedite the determination of preferred route alternatives so that the region can move forward with its comprehensive planning in those areas impacted by the GTA West study area. All in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried. Thank you very much. And I'm going to suggest, because I can hear Councillor Carlson's stomach growling from here, that we recess for lunch.
Yeah. I'll give you a call later.
Thank you. Well.
Right there. Don't go away.